Hello everybody, it's Mel. Thank you for joining me today for Paige Made Me Read It. So this is a reading vlog and it is another in a series of reading vlogs that I have been doing on my channel for the last year or so. The idea behind this is that I pick out a booktuber and I pick out a few books that I feel like they have inspired me in some way or another to read. So hence why it is ex-booktuber made me read it, because I am reading the books because of the inspiration from those people. So today I'm going to be talking through, well, today in this video you'll be watching it probably in one sitting, but you know how reading vlogs work. But anyway, this video is going to feature books that I am reading because I have been inspired to do so by Paige from Pages with Paige. Obviously, Paige's channel is linked down below, so please go and check out her YouTube channel. I love Paige. I think she is a fantastic content creator and also just a really lovely person, a really good friend of mine, and I'm incredibly glad to have met her via BookTube, and I just really appreciate her. Thank you so much, Paige, for being my friend and for hanging out with me on various lives, reading books with me, and it was so amazing to meet you earlier this year. So thank you so much for everything that you've ever done and interacted with me for and everything. But yeah, I think Paige is amazing and I highly recommend that you go and subscribe to her channel and check out all of her videos. But today I'm going to be talking you through all of the books that I'm going to read because of Paige, and then like I said, you know how vlogs work. You'll see me reading them and talking about them. So what are the books that I'm going to be reading for this vlog? The first book that I'm going to be reading I actually already read, but I'm not going to talk about now because you'll watch past Mel talk about her experiences, and that book is Neon Gods by Katie Roberts. So if anyone who's watching knows Paige, they will know that Paige loves Katie Roberts. There is something about Katie Roberts' writing style and the way she writes characters and the way she writes smut that Paige absolutely loves. Paige has been talking about Katie Roberts for as long as I can remember. I don't actually think that she was reading Katie Roberts when she started her channel or before she started her channel. I think Katie Roberts is something she found after making her channel, but she's certainly been talking about Katie Roberts for a long time. I am pretty sure she has read basically everything that Katie Roberts has written up to date. If not pretty much everything, then almost everything, if that makes sense. I am going to read one book of Katie Roberts and we'll see how we go. Now, Katie Roberts does not write the kinds of books that I necessarily particularly gravitate towards or necessarily particularly enjoy. Katie Roberts writes sort of, I guess, dark romance, and it's speculative. Dark speculative romance, I think, is what area of writing, of genre, of type of book. You get what I'm saying, I hope. I think that's kind of her thing. I have heard great things, not just from Paige, but from a variety of different people who have read Katie Roberts. So I have heard that she is a phenomenal author and that, you know, her books are great, but they're just not, generally speaking, my kind of thing. But because I'm reading books inspired by Paige, I feel inspired to pick up Katie Roberts. So I'm going to start with Neon Gods because Neon Gods is, well, it is part of, I think it's the Dark Olympus series. It's the first book in the Dark Olympus series, and these are Greek mythology retellings. They are dark, romance, Greek mythology retellings. It is a fantasy world as far as I understand, and it's not a direct Greek mythology retelling in the way that something like Ariadne by Jennifer Saint might be. It is more like Lore Olympus, I believe, by Rachel Smythe. So it's more kind of taking some of the characters and some of the relationships and sort of like structures of the story and putting it into a different setting, I think. And like I said, this is a dark romance, so I think that a dark romance is sort of like dark themes with a romantic plot, if that makes sense. I know that Katie Roberts has been lauded by Paige and others for writing fantastic sex scenes. So all of her smut is really, really good. Again, smut is not necessarily something I particularly gravitate towards. I'm not against it, but it's just not necessarily something that I particularly need in my books. But when I come across it, if it's well written, I mean, it's kind of how I feel about most things, to be honest with you. If something is well written, even if it's not necessarily my cup of tea or not necessarily something I gravitate towards, I'm still probably going to enjoy it to a greater or lesser extent. And I've heard that Katie Roberts writes really, really, really well. So I'm going to give it a shot because of Paige. This is all about you, Paige. I'm going to give it a shot and see what I think of it. But yeah, Paige loves Katie Roberts. Like I said, I think she's read pretty much everything that Katie Roberts has written for the most part. I know she's read basically the entirety of what's so far written of the Dark Olympus series. So I'm excited to give it a try and see what I think. So that is the first book I'm going to be reading for this video. I am hoping that I enjoy it, or at least don't hate it. We'll see how we go. The next book that I'm going to be picking up, I'm not necessarily reading them in this order, by the way, although I have actually read Neon Gods, like I said, so I guess I am probably reading them somewhat in this order. But anyway, the next book that I'm going to be reading, inspired by Paige, is A Heart in a Body in the World by Deb Coletti. Now, this is not currently a book that is particularly popular on BookTube. I don't know that I've heard anyone else, or potentially maybe I've only heard one or two other people talk about this book, but Paige loves this book. I think Paige read as a teenager or young adult, like early 20s, and just it really resonated with her. It really, really spoke to her, and she definitely found it to be incredibly meaningful, and yeah, it just really spoke to her and she really, really loves it. I think she's reread it quite a few times, and I think each time it makes her really emotional. And so for that reason, I'm going to read this book. Because it's a book that's meant so much to Paige, it feels like a book that I need to read, and it feels like a book that I really need to experience. I don't really know what to expect. I know that it's young adult. I know that it follows a young girl, or young woman, I think is running across America. I'm not really sure why she's doing that, but I think she's running across America. Yeah, and I know that it's, like I said, it is a contemporary young adult fiction about a young woman. I'm assuming it's going to be about her kind of dealing with some stuff, figuring herself out, potentially finding romance. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm expecting it to be quite heart-wrenching. I'm expecting it to be a little bit hard to read at times, but I'm expecting it to be really meaningful. I don't know how I'll go in terms of like how much I'll like it. I don't know that I'll love it, but I definitely feel like I'll enjoy it and get something out of it. But I'm just really keen to, I guess, learn a bit more about Paige through this book, because it means so much to her, because I've heard her express how important it is to her and how much it's affected her and how seen she's felt as a result of this book, if that makes sense. Then I just feel like I need to read this book and I need to experience it so that I can kind of understand Paige a little bit more and feel a bit closer to Paige. So that's what I'm hoping I get out of it. Paige does not know that I'm doing this so far, by the way. In fact, I'm assuming she will find out around the time that you all find out, because it is, you know, that's the nature of secret vlogs. She knows I do this type of video, but she doesn't know I'm doing this one that is inspired by her. So, hi Paige. I'm hoping that you don't mind, and I'm hoping that you like my selections, and yeah, that's why I want to read this book, and I just love you and want to feel closer to you, I guess. But also, you know, I like reading books, and I like picking books that I read because of other people. I've enjoyed that process. This is the 6th one that I've done. Yeah, this is the 6th of this type of video I've done. I will link the playlist down below. I will also, I think I said this, link Paige down below, and anyone else that I talk about. down below. But yeah, please go ahead and check out the playlist and check out the other booktubers who I've talked about and the various different books I've read because of inspired by those people. I'm finding the process really interesting. The videos themselves unfortunately don't get a lot of views, but that's okay, that's not important, because I'm finding the process really interesting and I'm reading books that I wouldn't necessarily have read except for this concept. So I'm finding that really interesting, and so that's why I'm picking up this book. And then the final book that I'm going to be picking up for this vlog is Strong Female Character by Fern Brady. So Fern Brady is an a English, or Scottish actually, comedian. I personally know her from Taskmaster. I don't actually know where Paige knows her from. I haven't had any other experience with her apart from Taskmaster, but I did really like her in Taskmaster. I love Taskmaster. It's a fantastic show if you haven't seen it. It's really, really funny. Very British, but very funny. And I really enjoyed her on Taskmaster. I thought she was fantastic, really funny. And I did see that this book was out and I was interested in reading it, but then I saw that Paige read it and Paige really enjoyed it, and so I thought, you know what, that's perfect. It definitely goes on this video because I'm interested in reading it and Paige really enjoyed it. I feel like Paige got a lot out of it as well. So it's an autobiography. I think it's written by, yes, it's written by Fern Brady. But yes, so like I said, this is an autobiography memoir about Fern from Fern's perspective. Fern is autistic, so I think it'll be a lot about her experiences as an autistic person in a neurotypical world. But yeah, I will be reading that one as well, and I'm hoping I enjoy it. I'm hoping I get a lot out of it, and yeah, I think Paige found it funny because, like I said, Fern is a comedian, so hopefully I find it funny as well. But anyway, those are the 3 books that I'll be reading for this vlog, which is Paige Made Me Read It. And yeah, I'm really hoping that you enjoy watching me experiencing these books. I'm hoping that Paige enjoys it, and I hope that you don't mind Paige. But anyway, I'm reading books inspired by you, so there we go. And yeah, I guess I'll talk to you when I next have something to say. Hello. So I have started Neon Gods, and I have to say, I'm enjoying it, which I'm quite surprised about because, as I'm sure I would have said, I didn't know what I was going to think about it. As far as I am aware, it is as far as I was aware, as far as I've been led to believe, but I don't know how much of this is like being led to believe versus misunderstanding, but I thought it was a dark romance. It still definitely has the potential to be dark. I'm only just over an 1/8 of the way through. So I've only read like, what's that, like 12%. So, you know, like we have got through the kind of setup, but we don't have much more than that. But yeah, I really didn't know how I was going to feel about this, and I had doubts that I was going to enjoy it because, like I said, I was under the impression it was a dark romance. And I'm under the impression that it was very smutty. And maybe it will get smuttier and it may very well still be dark. Although I don't think it's going to be as dark as I thought it was going to be. So that's good because like bully romances type of thing, just not my vibe at all. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with smut. I like quite enjoy smut. But I'm not a huge fan of books that are like basically just smut. Like, obviously, you know, do you, each their own. But yeah, I was under the impression that it was kind of smut from the get-go, which it is not so far. And like I said, I'm only like 12% in, but you know, it's certainly not smut from like page 1. So we'll see. The only thing I will say so far is that it seems to be another Hades and Persephone retelling whereby Zeus is the like bad guy. Zeus is the like potential like misogynist, abuser, rapist, and Hades is like maybe the misunderstood hero. Like everyone thinks of him as being that way. He's like the evil incarnate kind of character, but then actually he's a decent kind of person. Like, I know they're reimaginings of Hades and Persephone, so, you know, take the original myth with a grain of salt for these sorts of things, but that is definitely not how it went down. Like, yeah, I'm not saying Zeus isn't a bad guy. Zeus is a douche. But Hades kidnapped Persephone and made her his bride. It's not specifically said in the myth that he raped her, but like, you've got to assume. And then there was a deal made with her mother whereby she would live with Hades for like 4 months of the year, 3 months of the year, for like a quarter of the year. So Hades is not the decent good guy in this story. And I just don't really, I mean, I guess I get that we don't want to just flat out have Hades being the real bad guy, and then there being a relationship between them, because that would be a bit too much, That would be very much like, I know Stockholm Syndrome has been debunked, but that would very much be the concept of Stockholm Syndrome. But I don't know why, but it's just like, it just kind of bugs me. Like, it's not, I don't know. I don't know if it bugs me, but it's just like, why do we seem to be wanting to romanticize Hades and Persephone as a thing? I just don't understand. I mean, it's not like we're not saying that abduction and rape and coercion and forced marriage and all of those things are bad. We're definitely saying those things are bad, but why are we saying it through a vehicle that allows Hades to be the good guy when yeah, like, I just don't understand that. But anyway, I'm going to see how we go with this book, because like I said, I don't say that I'm loving it, like it's the best book I've ever read, but like, I'm definitely enjoying it, and I'm definitely enjoying it a lot more than I expected to. So let's just see how we get on with the rest of the book. But yeah, so I don't know how much else I'm going to read. Well, I've only just gotten up. So yeah, we'll see, and I'll check in when I've read a bit more and have something else to say. Hello. It is a few days later. I think it's probably almost a week at this point. And anyway, I am, according to my Libby app, I am 55% of the way into the book. I'm enjoying it. I'm very surprised that I'm enjoying it, to be honest with you. I really did not have high hopes for me liking this book, just because of things I've heard about it, as we discussed. But I'm enjoying it. It's quite different from what I expected, mostly because there's more politics and more world building, essentially, than I was expecting there to be. Which is not to say that I wasn't expecting any world building or anything. I just was not expecting it to be. I guess it makes sense though when you think about it, because there are a number of books in this series, so you would think that there would have to be some world building for the series to make sense and to continue. But I was expecting it to be more smutty, basically, and less plot. But there is actually quite a bit of plot. The characters are reasonably interesting. I wouldn't say they're like particularly amazing. It's not like, it's not like, wow, these are the most inspiring characters or different or whatever. Most, they're not particularly unique or anything like that, but they're certainly more interesting than I was expecting. But we've gotten now into more of the sex and more of the bargain that they made with each other. So they've made a bargain that they would be seen to be having a relationship of sorts. The bargain is basically that they're having sex, so it's not like it's not like it's friend. It's not like it's it's not like it's what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, distracted by the child. It's not like it's fake dating, because they're not really dating, but they're not faking anything. They're shagging. But it's like a pact that they're made, that they would be seen to be in a relationship, they'd be seen to be having sex, so that Zeus would give up on Persephone. So Persephone, in this book, Persephone is the daughter of Demeter, which you'd expect, and then she's got some other sisters who are nymphs, who are like, there's Psyche, there's Callisto. It's set up so that it's like this city, Olympus is this city, and there's some kind of vague idea of there being a paranormal aspect to it, but we haven't explored that really very much at all. And there's like the 13 Olympic gods are like the 13 of myth, are like the 13 kind of rulers of the city, and Zeus is like the head of that group. And Zeus is well loved and thought of as this amazing guy, but Persephone and her sisters and a few other people don't think that. They think that he's an asshole, effectively, and that he's also a murderer, and that he's murdered his last 3 wives, who are in the positions of hearers. So Demeter has promised Persephone to Zeus as his bride, and Zeus doesn't, Persephone doesn't want that, so she runs away, and she thinks Hades is a myth. And then she runs away and she runs across the river Styx into the lower city of Olympus, and she meets Hades and she realizes he's not a myth. And then there's all sorts of rumors about Hades, and he tries to keep those rumors afloat by behaving. It reminds me quite a lot of like Rysand in the Agatar series, where Rysand tries to maintain this notion of being the big bad. And that the Night Court is this evil, horrible place. But he's not like that really at all. Hi. 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 And so, yeah, it kind of reminds me of that. Sorry, the baby is very distracting and grinning at mama. Yeah, anyway, but Persephone's seeing a different side to him, but at the same time they're shagging and they're doing it publicly, like literally having sex in public, in order to create this mythology of Persephone being like a fallen woman in the hopes that Zeus won't want her anymore. So we've gotten into, they've had sex, they're quite sexy with each other to begin with quite quickly, but they don't have sex until halfway through the book, and we've had sex now. It was in public, like I said. It was putting on a show, and he is into BDSM, so they've talked about like safe words and different things like that. They haven't had actual BDSM yet, but they've had sex in public. Anyway, they're starting to catch feelings, but we'll see where we go from here. But like I said, I'm enjoying it more than I thought, because the sex is still fairly graphic, but it's not quite as... It is not the one and only plot. Like there's actual plot, there's actually actual characters, which I don't know why I wasn't expecting that, because I have heard people talk about those things as being quite well done. So I don't know why I was expecting that, but people always talk about the smart in Katie Roberts' books. Anyway, we'll see how we go. It feels like it's potentially moving more into smart than it is necessarily continuing the plot, although it would have to continue the plot, at least to a certain extent, because like I said, I don't know how many books, but there's quite a number of books in the series. But anyway, like I said, I'm enjoying it a lot more than I thought. I don't know what I'll end up giving it. It's not feeling like it's going to be it's certainly not a 5-star. I don't think it's going to be a 4.5 star. It may come out as a 4, but I'm leaning more towards maybe a 3.5 at the moment, but we'll see how we go. Anyway, I'm going to go and play with that cute little baby that I was talking to off screen, and also my lunch. Rowan's getting lunch ready, so lunch will be here soon. But yeah, I'll talk to you later. Hey guys, so apologies for the angle, but this feels like the way to do it right now. Anyway, hello. It is probably about 3 days since I have actually finished Neon Gods, but I finished Neon Gods, and yeah, I still maintain that I enjoyed it. I thought the ending was kind of weak. I get what was happening and I get why they did that at the end, but I do kind of feel like it was kind of weak. And I like the way that Demeter turned out to be more on Persephone's side than it seemed like Demeter was on, and that she had other plans that didn't, like, it wasn't just about giving up Persephone to Zeus, who everyone knew to be a monster and everyone knew was, a terrible person and, a monster and a murderer and had killed his other wives. Like, there was no proof, but everyone knew it. So anyway, Persephone was betrothed to him, so why she ran away, because she didn't trust him and she felt like he was a murderer, and that she'd killed the other heroes, which is the, title of the wife of Zeus in this fantasy world. So I don't know if I explained really properly what this whole fantasy world was. So it's basically, I don't know exactly how it fits in with the wider world. It seems like it's its own kind of thing, but it's a city of Olympus. I assume in Greece, although that isn't specified. And it seems to be kind of like a Daevabad kind of thing, if you know the Daevabad trilogy, in the sense that it's kind of separate and separated by magic. It's not really specified how that works. I don't know if that'll be explained a bit more in the later books. And then the lower city and the upper city are separated by a similar kind of barrier. The city and overall is ruled by the 13, and they are the 13 gods. I couldn't quite get a beat on who exactly all the gods were, because it seemed to be more gods than you would expect. Like, there seemed to be, like, Dionysus was one of them, which I wouldn't have thought. But anyway, so it was Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. And Zeus was in control of the upper city, Poseidon was in the control of the docks, and Hades was in the control of the lower city. And then there's Aphrodite, who I assume is in control of, like, I don't know, I guess, like, nightlife and stuff like that, entertainment. And Demeter, who's in control of, like, food stores and fresh produce and stuff like that. Hera, who is the wife of Zeus, and it's not specified what she's in charge of. She's just the wife of Zeus. So I'm not sure exactly how that works. And then there's Dionysus, and he's the party guy, so I don't know what Aphrodite is then. But anyway, so how many have I got? Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, Hera, Aphrodite, Dionysus, and Hermes. Ares is mentioned, as is Eros is mentioned, but he's mentioned as Aphrodite's son and not necessarily mentioned as one of the 13. So I'm not sure how that works. I think I've got like 4 more positions. They haven't mentioned Athena, although I'm assuming there must be Athena. Who else haven't they mentioned? They haven't mentioned Hephaestus, although I assume he must be in there somewhere. I guess Eros must be one of the 13 as well. So actually, no, that does track. Anyway, they are like the rulers of the city, but Zeus is kind of like the overall commander. Except for the lower city, because Hades is in total command of that. And Zeus and Hades has this treaty, and the people in the upper city think that Hades is a myth. So when Persephone runs away and runs to the lower city and ends up with Hades, she thinks that Hades is a myth, but he's not, obviously. And then the ending, we had Hades was going to kill Zeus, and Demeter had revealed to Persephone that so Persephone went back because she realized that Zeus was never going to stop, and they were going to start a war between the upper city and the lower city, and she didn't want that to happen. So she went back and she agreed to be married to Zeus. But Demeter, her mother, revealed that she had other plans, like that she would marry Zeus, but it would just be, anyway, that she had other plans that involved Zeus still being there, still being the figurehead that he was, but being basically completely useless. Basically, yeah, not sure exactly what she was going to do, but like she was going to drug him, I think, or something like that. And so she wasn't really going to like give Persephone over to Zeus' power, and she wasn't, yeah. But she never explained any of that to Persephone, so Persephone didn't know, and she just ran away because she didn't want any of that to happen. Anyway, so then in the meantime, Hades had decided he was going to kill Zeus, and he was coming to kill Zeus, and Demeter was like, okay, well, fuck it, you know what, like, that's fine. That's not my plan. It wouldn't have worked. My plan was better because the guy who was going to be sworn in as Zeus, if this current Zeus died, is just as bad as his father. So really, it would have been better to have him, but in like a weakened, ineffectual. That's what I'm looking for, ineffectual state. But Hades goes to kill him, but then kind of like they had this big discussion while they're fighting, and Hades realized that it's not actually worth killing Zeus, and it kind of comes to the same conclusion that Demeter came to, except that then accidentally Zeus falls out the window and dies, and then Demeter makes it so that he's disappeared, but no one knows, so no one thinks Hades did. Anyway, it felt really convenient, I think, is the thing. Like, he realized he didn't want to kill Zeus, but then he died anyway, and then Demeter, I guess, like, Demeter didn't want to do that, but she's supposed to be the produce person, the farming person, so she can, like, disappear her body. It just feels a bit convenient, basically. So I didn't love the ending, but overall it was good. Very much about the love story between Persephone and Hades, which again is kind of a bit like, well, I guess
if you want to paint Hades as this like misunderstood character and Zeus the bad guy, I mean, Zeus isn't a good guy. Let's not beat around the bush here. But Hades was not the good guy in Greek mythology. But anyway, and then they kind of confess their love, and then she moves down there, and then they put on a show of them shagging for everyone to see. And that's kind of the end. And like he's all into voyeurism and people watching him, and it says BDSM, although they really don't show any BDSM. And they describe something as light BDSM, but I don't know. I don't really know much about BDSM, but like to me, it felt like a normal thing that people potentially would do who aren't into BDSM, and so therefore it doesn't feel like it's BDSM, if that makes sense. I can't remember what it was even, but yeah. Anyway, so like it was enjoyable because I think I really enjoyed it more than I expected to, if that makes sense, but I don't think that should make my rating higher. So anyway, I got a 3.5 star when I ran it through my Paige system, or Erin's Paige system, but I put it on 3 stars in Goodreads because I couldn't up it to 4. I didn't feel like it deserved a 4 from me, so I had to downgrade it to 3. So that's where we're at with that. I want to get this up in the next month or so, but I also know that I'm hoping that the book will come in so I can finish Gavin's so that it can go up before this one. That's the plan. We'll see how that all pans out. It is the 20th, I feel, 21st even, potentially. I could have looked before I started using the video, but anyway, of August. So I don't think I'll get to both of those books before the end of August because I also have a few other books. Like I have another book for a book club, and then I have 2 other books for my TBR game, and one of those books has to be decided by chapter, so that'll take a little while anyway. So yeah, I don't think I'll get to them. Plus, hopefully, Dungeon Crawler Carl comes back in to the library. So anyway, all that to say, we will see where we get to and how long this takes, but hopefully it won't take as long as the Gavin one that I've been working on has been taking. But anyway, that's all I've really got to say for now. So I'll catch up with you when I have started, strong female character, and or the other one, which the Deb Coletti one. Just feel like it's too long to say. Keep saying all the time. So yeah, all right, bye. Hello, editing Mel here. So this next clip, I obviously was pretty sure that I had already spoken to you about the next book that I was reading, which was A Heart in a Body in the World. And the next clip you're going to see is me talking about the very end of the book. Like I said, at the time I seemed pretty sure, and I am still pretty sure that I filmed other clips of me reading the book, but I don't have them. So either I accidentally deleted them or I didn't film at all. I'm pretty sure I must have accidentally deleted them because I do recall talking to you guys about the book. But I don't have them. So, yeah, I started reading A Heart in a Body in the World by Deb Coletti. I will now let you go and see past Mel when she was actually reading the book or listening to it. So you can see in the moment me reacting. And yeah. Hello. I'm just listening. I've got about half an hour left of the book, and I'm not going to be able to talk for long because I've got Bob in the car and we just got to a play centre. So yeah, but I just wanted to say that the last probably hour has just been heart-wrenching and just a punch in the gut, and I am just floored by what's happened. Like you can't really see because I have my glasses on, but I've been like trying not to cry because I'm driving. Yeah, so this is me looking like I've been crying on the road because it was just, I was like this, driving with one hand, which, is fine, but like not super safe when you're doing 80 k's an hour. Anyway, Bob wants to go inside and have play, probably also have lunch. So I'm going to go, but yeah, just wanted to say that, and I'll talk to you a bit more about it all later. It is several weeks since I finished
a heart in a body in the world. And I don't think I jumped on to actually talk to you about it other than when I was like just finishing it and basically crying. We also have a pistachio friend today. So I actually really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really well done. I don't even know if I've explained particularly what it is. So it's the story of a young woman. She's in her like late teens. She's just graduating or about to graduate high school. The whole way through the book it alludes to some fairly serious stuff that's happened in her life, but it doesn't tell you what the stuff is. Anyway, she just finishing a shift at her job, I think, and she leaves, and she used to be a runner. And so she still is a runner, I guess, but she's not been running. Sorry, cat hair everywhere now. And she decides to just start, she's just had enough of feeling the way she feels, so she just starts running. And she runs to like far enough away that now she can't, like it's difficult for her to get home. It's quite late. There's no like public transport particularly. So she calls her mum. In between calling her mum and her mum coming to get being on the way to get her and actually getting her, she decides she's going to run across America, across the United States. I don't remember from where to where. Well, to Washington, but I don't remember from where. And while she's running, she's kind of dealing with as much as she can what's going on for her. And like I said, it keeps alluding to it all the way through. So you get the impression that she feels responsible to a certain extent for what happened, but you don't know exactly what happened. I don't know how muffled I am because obviously pistachio is rubbing up against the mic, sorry. Yeah, you don't know how like responsible she actually is versus how much of that is, you know, women take on the blame from men, or how much of it is society giving her the blame, you know, etc. How much of it is legitimate, it's her fault, versus, you know, she's a girl. Anyway, but she's also running across the country. And it's basically, yeah, it's that. And I found it quite interesting the way that it was done, the way they kept referring to it, but it's also about her coming to terms as much as she can with what's happened and trying to kind of run it off, I guess. And then she meets someone along the way and becomes close with them, and she's running, well, she's not running with her grandfather, but her grandfather is driving a caravan with her, not like as her kind of support team, and so she sleeps in the caravan every night pretty much, except sometimes they get a hotel because her friends are simultaneously running this campaign about what she's doing, and so they're fundraising for her, and all these people are giving money and supporting her, and she doesn't really understand why. People say, well, people, you know, are like want to hear your side of the story, want to hear your voice, they think you're doing a really important thing. And at the end, and what it is that had me crying, is you find out what happened. And what happened, so she was in a relationship with a boy throughout a fair bit of her high school career, and then he broke it off with her at some point before the last year of high school, but like not super far into last year of high school. Anyway, and then she was really struggling to get over it, and then she kind of befriended this guy who was something a little bit odd about him. There were red flags, but she was grieving the loss of this relationship, so she was kind of ignoring the red flags, and also, like I said before, doing that thing that women do, take on responsibility for what boys or men do and how they respond to things, and also we're taught, you know, always to be friendly and nice and not to make people feel bad, even if they are doing things that make you feel uncomfortable, even if there's red flags. You always should be taking their feelings into account. So she was like that. So she never really kind of flat out said, I'm not interested, or, oh, you're making me uncomfortable, but she tried to distance herself a little bit. And then she got back together with her ex-boyfriend, and then she was all happy and lovey and whatnot. But then this other boy did some really quite weird stuff, and at the end, the thing that is revealed that he actually did was he went to a party and he killed the boyfriend and her best friend, thinking the best friend was her, and that just made me sob, as you saw. Yeah, it was really well done. It was really upsetting. It was really close to the bone. Not that anything like that has ever happened to me, but I definitely have been in situations that were dicey with men, with guys, that, you know, you feel uncomfortable and you don't do anything, or you don't make it really clear, or you try and make it clear and you don't know how, you don't have the words, because we're always taught to be submissive, to be accommodating, to be friendly, to think of other men in particular feelings, and so, you know, you're never really armed, especially as a teenager, with the tools to know how to say no properly, not properly, but like effectively, and be heard. Obviously, you know, there's the other side to that, is that men need to be given the tools to hear no, but yeah. So I just found it really compelling, really interesting, really, sorry, I'm a bit tired, and when I'm tired I tend to jiggle my legs up and down to try and keep myself awake. Yeah, it's a bit of a nervous tick. Anyway, but yeah, it was really, like, I can see why it meant so much to Paige. It was definitely heartbreaking, but really important, I think, and I'm glad I read it. I really, really feel like it, like I said, it touched something, and it was compelling, and it was definitely, you know, also a lot of talk about gun violence, and trying to stop gun violence, which is what she ended up doing. She ended up giving talk about that, and about what happened to her. She was heading towards talking, I think, at an end of high school, like another graduation or something like that, and so she was giving, or maybe it was a TV production, I think it was TV actually, and she was talking about her experiences and what happened to her, and also talking about gun violence and restricting, you know, gun policy in the US. But yeah, I would highly recommend for young people, definitely, but even just in general, if you read YA still or are happy to, then I would highly recommend. I really, really thought it was great. Well written, got the point across really well, the characters were great, it was really well done. So now, the next book that I want to read is Strong Female Character by Fern Brady. So I think I must have talked about this at the beginning. So this is a, I guess, memoir by Fern Brady, who is a Scottish comedian. It says at the back here, Fern's caustic wit, exceptional writing and electric stagecraft has made her one of the UK's hottest comedy stars. I've not seen any of her stand-up, but I've seen her on Taskmaster, and I really, really enjoyed, I love Taskmaster, but I really enjoyed her in that. This has got excerpts from Phil Wang, who is another comedian, Adam Kay, who is an author, I think most people know of him, Elle McNichol, who is also an author, Lou Sanders, who is a comedian, and Alex Horn, who is the person that runs Taskmaster, which is really, really cool. And yeah, I'm excited to read this one, and see what it was about this that moved, again, Paige so much. But yeah, so I'm not sure when I'm going to get to it, because I'm hoping that I will soon, but I'm really not sure, because I've got a lot on my plate for December, so we are hoping, oh yes, it's December if I hadn't said that, but I'm hoping to be able to pick it up soon, because it's due back to the library, you know, in the next, like, couple of weeks. 285 pages long, so I feel like that probably shouldn't be too hard. So I believe quite a bit of this is about her diagnosis with autism as an adult. It says on the back again, 1, I'm diagnosed with autism. So it's a summary of my book. 1, I'm diagnosed with autism, 20 years after telling a doctor I had it. 2, my terrible Catholic childhood. 3, my friendship with an elderly man who runs the corner shop and is definitely not trying to groom me. 4, homelessness. 5, stripping. 6, more stripping but with more nervous breakdowns. 7, I hate everyone at Edinburgh Uni, etc. 8, redacted as too spicy. 9, after everyone tells me I don't look autistic, I try to cure my autism and get addicted to Xanax. 10, redacted as too embarrassing. So anyway, I'm keen to read it and yeah, see what I think.
Hello friends. So it is the 21st of December and I am somewhere between halfway and 2/3 of the way through Strong Female Character, and it is really, really good. I am really enjoying it. I find it incredibly easy to read. I find it really inspiring, but also really upsetting to think of what people went through before they had a proper diagnosis. But yeah, it's told really well, and I think it's a really important book. So I'm really, really glad that I'm reading it, and I definitely am recommending it to people. So yeah, there's that. I don't really have much else to say, but I just wanted to come on and say I'm making my way through this one. So
hello. It is the 28th of December today, and I have finished Strong Female Character by Fern Brady. This was fantastic. I thought this was amazing. I really enjoyed it. It is hard to read at times. It is quite raw. She doesn't pull any punches, but I think that is great. I think that's really important. Yeah, I don't actually even know how much I talked about this. Excuse me, I'm a little bit sniffly today. I have a bit of a cold. But this is for a memoir by Scottish comedian Fern Brady, and it is about her experiences, basically her experiences throughout her life with autism. She was diagnosed later in life, I'm not sure what age, but I think in her late 20s or early 30s. She had been saying pretty much her entire life that she was autistic, and no one was having bar of it. She was told things like she could look them in the eye, so therefore couldn't have autism, had boyfriends, so therefore couldn't have autism. Lots of things that are based on male experiences of autism, specifically male boy children experience of autism. A lot of women experience their autism very differently from men and from boys, and so when you are looking for things like can't look you in the eye, very specifically nerdy interests, think Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory, and a lot of women don't experience those things, and so they are not diagnosed with autism when they do in fact have autism. I found this incredibly interesting, incredibly heartbreaking. I think it's an important read. I think not only does it give you some insights into the experiences of women with autism and people who are diagnosed later in life with autism and just, you know, what it's like to be autistic in general. I think it is important as a way to understand people can experience things both in terms of being autistic, but in terms of not being believed and not being correctly diagnosed with whatever it might be that you are not diagnosed with, that you don't therefore have the opportunity to, you know, gain the benefits of assistance and help, but also just gain the benefit of knowing what it is that's going on, what it is that is causing the various things that then cause issue in your life, because this world is set up for neurotypical people and not set up for neurodivergent people. And so those who are neurodivergent experience their symptoms in ways that they don't have to, because there could be accommodations made. They could exist in a world that was set up in a way that they could function just as easily as allistic, which is the term I learned from here. Allistic people are people who are not autistic, which I find really interesting. I like the fact that there is a term, rather than saying that these people have autism and these people are normal. I like that there is allistic and autistic, so there's a term for both, and so it puts people in it. I feel like I'm not autistic, so I can't speak to how that affects people who are autistic, but I feel like it puts you on a more even playing field, because you're no longer the person with a title or with a condition, if you know what I mean. So, for example, Fern always was scratching her, when she was a kid, she was scratching her arms all the time, and as a way to kind of deal with whatever. So her mother used to like hold her by the arms and then she'd scratch her arms. And it was a way for her to try to kind of deal with the sensation of what her mother holding her by the arm had felt for her. And she was just accused of being like, I guess, kind of mean to her mum in a way. I find it really helpful to think about like how people are experiencing things, like how they would experience things differently if, I say accommodations, but it doesn't even need to be accommodations. It just needs to be a different mindset. You just need to be able to say, okay, my child is experiencing this because of this, like their sensation, their whatever part of the brain that deals with that sensation is amplified. That sound or that light frequency or that whatever it might be is causing a different feeling, and it's not often, the thing is that that's not, you know, like for a non-autistic person, an allistic person, a particular sound might stay in the background, it might not be noticeable, whereas for an autistic person, for example, it might be something that is really in the foreground, and so it's hard to ignore. This talks about that as well, and it talks about meltdowns and specifically around like why meltdowns happen and what can be done to help the meltdown, but what can be done to try to stop the meltdown, rather than, because things get overloaded, and it's particularly for people, I guess in this instance, particularly people who are diagnosed later in life, so they don't know to make all the accommodations. They're being told that everything's fine and they're just being difficult or whatever, and so they don't make accommodations for themselves and none are made for them, and so they end up with overwhelm, and it's partly overwhelm due to all the different experiences they're having throughout a day and sensations they're experiencing, and like the example I just gave, but it's also partly just from masking, just from trying to cope with all those things. So I found that really helpful to think about in terms of what people experience that aren't myself, in terms of thinking about some of the children that I know who I work with who are autistic, but also in terms of some of the people that I know, some of the adults that I know. Like, there's a difference between being a teacher and trying to work with people who are experiencing something that will alter the way that they experience education from my own, not just experience of education for what I've gone through being educated, but as an educator and how I might differentiate my practices. But in terms of thinking about my friends and what they experience and the overload that they might experience, like, I think about the times when I feel overly socialized and like I need a break, I need to just have some time for myself, and think about how that affects me. That might affect me as an holistic person, so imagine how it might affect someone who feels it has sensory issues, sensory processing issues, or who finds social situations really overwhelming, or who is attempting to mask a lot of the time. So yeah, I just think this is a really interesting book. It's really well written. It's incredibly well written. It's funny in places. It's upsetting in places. I'm just really, really glad that I read it. I have a lot of respect for this person. I liked her already, but I have a lot of respect for her now that I've read this book and seen not just what she's experienced, but the frankness that she's speaking about these experiences with, which I really respect. Yeah, so I'm really glad I read it. So I've read all the 3 books now for the vlog. So obviously I read Neon Gods a while ago, and you would have seen what I talked about in that. It's not particularly stuck with me. It was fine. I think I mentioned, I don't remember what I gave it, but I think I mentioned that it was fine. I enjoyed it more than I expected to, but I didn't love it. I don't think I'll be continuing with the series. Not to say that I won't, like, if for whatever reason it happens to cross my path, I'm not going to go out of my way to read it. I'm not going to buy the books. If something came up in a TBR game, or they're relatively short, are they? I actually don't know. But yeah, if it came up for whatever reason that I might read some of the other books, I would potentially, like, I'm not against reading them, but I'm not going to go out of my way to read them. They're not going to be a series I keep track of and try to read, but I haven't definitively DNF'd the series, if that makes sense. But that was a fun experience, and I'm glad I experienced it. I'm glad I read something that Paige loves so much, because now I feel like I can, understand what she's talking about a bit more. I don't personally see what it was that affects her so much about that book, but that's just personal taste, obviously. Heart and the Body in the World, I think, and Strong Female Character, I think, are 2 books that people should read. I think they are incredibly important in what they discuss. I think they're incredibly well written. I think they discuss what they discuss incredibly well and, thoughtfully, and give you a really interesting perspective on those things, but also just offer a really, just are entertaining to read, if that makes sense. The Body in the World had me in tears. Got me in the feels, very much so. Like I said, it had me in tears. It was incredibly moving. Sorry, that's the noise of my water bottle. It was incredibly moving. It was very upsetting. It was really well done. I really liked the way that it swapped between the various time periods and kept giving you brief little bits to entice you to continue reading and to wonder what was going to have happened and wonder what the taker, as they call the antagonist, who is never on screen, which I find really, on page, which I find really interesting as well, and I think it's really well done. I love the relationship between Annabelle, our main character, and her grandfather. I thought that was incredibly well done. And yeah, I'm just really glad I read it. I definitely see what it is that Paige sees in this. I can see why it has such importance to her and why it continues to have such importance to her. So thank you, Paige, by unwittingly forcing me to read this book. And yeah, I'm really glad I read Strong Female Character as well, as I've just discussed. So I feel like this was a really successful vlog. I don't actually know. I have not done any editing, so I am not sure how much actual footage I have and how long this vlog will be. The last one of these I did, as you know, is Gavin's, and that was like an hour long or something. I will link it down below. I'll link the whole playlist down below. And I don't know how much this is going to be, but either way, I hope you've enjoyed it. And yeah, thank you so much, Paige, for all of these books, even book suggestions, even though you didn't actually technically make them. I'm having so much fun with these vlogs. They don't get a huge amount of viewers, but I'm having a lot of fun with them. So I'm hoping those people who do watch them are enjoying them. And Paige, I hope you enjoyed it. But yeah, that's everything that I have to share with you with these books and this vlog. So I'm gonna go. Before I do though, please comment any thoughts that you have down below. Let me know if you like them. Let me know if there's anyone in particular that you'd like to see me do a vlog of this sort for, and maybe some books that you think might work for whoever those people are. Also, if you would like to leave me a comment but you don't know what, then leave me a heart emoji for a heart in a body in the world. And yeah, that's everything that I have to talk to you about today. So thanks so much for joining me. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would absolutely love it if you would subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. And yeah, like I said, thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.